Albert Camus is often remembered as a philosopher of darkness. He wrote about absurdity, death, rebellion, and injustice. But this reputation hides something essential. Beneath everything Camus wrote runs a stubborn affirmation of life, not optimism, not blind hope, something quieter and more defiant: joy. For Camus, joy is not the opposite of suffering. It is what refuses to let suffering become the whole truth. The absurd does not mean that life is worthless. It means that life does not come with explanations. Human beings long for meaning, purpose, and justice. The universe offers silence. This collision produces what Camus calls the absurd. Many people react to this discovery by becoming bitter. If nothing has ultimate meaning, they assume nothing matters. They withdraw emotionally. They become cynical. They stop caring. Camus believed this reaction misunderstands the absurd. The absurd is not a verdict on life. It is a condition of living. The world's silence does not cancel our experience of being alive. It simply removes the comforting illusion that someone is in charge. And once that illusion disappears, something unexpected happens. The present becomes sharper. When nothing is guaranteed, every moment becomes fragile. And fragile things matter more, not less. This is where joy enters Camus' philosophy. Joy is what happens when you stop demanding that life justify itself. It is the experience of being fully alive in a world that offers no guarantees. You do not need the universe to care in order to care yourself. Joy is not denial. It is lucidity. Camus did not want people to console themselves with stories about heaven, destiny, or historical progress. He wanted them to stand inside life as it is and still choose intensity, to love without promises, to feel without waiting for meaning to arrive. That choice is rebellion. When you feel joy in a world that does not care, you are refusing to let indifference define you. You are saying the universe may be silent, but I am not. I will not reduce my life to fear, waiting, or resignation. Joy is the refusal to postpone being alive. Camus believed the greatest danger of the absurd was not despair, but resignation. Despair is visible. Resignation is quiet. It happens when people stop expecting anything from life and shrink their hopes until nothing can hurt them anymore. They continue to function, but they no longer feel alive. Resignation says, "This is how things are, and nothing can be done." Joy says, "This is how things are, and I am still here." That difference is subtle, but radical. A resigned person survives. A joyful person participates. Camus saw resignation everywhere in modern society. People numbed themselves with routine, distraction, and cynicism. They worked, consumed, and waited. They told themselves that life would begin later, after success, after stability, after everything made sense. But nothing ever fully makes sense. The result was a spreading emptiness. Joy disrupts this waiting. To feel joy is to say that the present moment is not just a bridge to something else. It is where life happens. When you laugh, feel pleasure, notice beauty, or connect with another person, you are no longer postponing your existence. You are inhabiting it. This is why joy is rebellion. It resists the logic of postponement that keeps people compliant. Systems of power rely on people believing that their real life is somewhere else. In the future, in heaven, in success, in approval. Joy pulls life back into now. Camus did not believe that joy erases suffering. He believed it prevents suffering from becoming everything. A person who feels alive is not easily reduced to fear or shame. They still have something inside that refuses to collapse. Resignation makes people smaller. Joy makes them expansive. This expansiveness is dangerous to any system that wants obedience. A joyful person does not need permission to feel alive. They do not need justification. They are harder to control because they have not surrendered their inner world. Camus believed revolt without joy becomes hatred. With joy, revolt becomes love for what still exists. It becomes a way of protecting what has not yet been destroyed. Joy is not shallow, it is protective. Camus's most famous image of joy is also one of the bleakest: Sisyphus condemned to roll a stone up a mountain forever. There is no reward, no progress, and no escape. Yet Camus insists that Sisyphus can be imagined as joyful. This is not because his fate is good, it is because he is awake. Sisyphus's punishment is not only physical, it is psychological. The endlessness of the task is meant to crush his spirit. But Camus focuses on a moment that changes everything: the walk back down the mountain after the stone has fallen. In that moment, Sisyphus knows the truth. There is no hope of release, no illusion of meaning, no future that will redeem his labor. And because he knows this, the future loses its power over him. He is no longer living for what might happen. He is living inside what is happening. That is where joy appears. Joy does not come from escaping the absurd. It comes from inhabiting it without lies. Sisyphus does not pretend his labor has meaning. He simply does it. He feels his muscles, his breath, the air, the earth beneath his feet. These sensations still belong to him. The gods can take everything else, but they cannot take that. Presence is a form of freedom. Modern people are often more trapped than Sisyphus because they live in imagined futures. They are always waiting for something to happen before they allow themselves to feel alive. Sisyphus never waits. He has nothing to wait for. Camus believed this acceptance creates a strange dignity. When you stop demanding that life justify itself, you reclaim the present. And in the present, even under absurd conditions, something remains possible: the experience of being alive. That experience is joy, and joy, in a meaningless world, is rebellion. Camus was not a philosopher of detached ideas. He was a philosopher of the body. He believed that meaning does not begin in abstractions, but in sensation. The warmth of sunlight on skin, the rhythm of breath, the pleasure of movement, the intensity of desire. These experiences are not secondary to philosophy. They are the raw material of being alive. This is why joy for Camus is often physical: to swim, to walk, to run, to laugh, to touch, to taste. These are not escapes from the absurd. They are ways of living inside it. When you are fully in your body, you are not living in imagined futures or metaphysical hopes. You are here. Abstract systems pull people away from this. Religions promise heaven. Ideologies promise utopia. Bureaucracies reduce people to numbers. All of them shift attention away from lived experience toward some higher purpose. Camus saw this as a theft. Joy pulls life back into the body. A person who feels their own existence is harder to manipulate. You cannot easily convince someone to sacrifice themselves for an idea when they are busy feeling the beauty and vulnerability of being alive. The body resists abstraction because it always lives in the present. This is why joy is dangerous to power. It anchors people in their own reality rather than in someone else's narrative. It reminds them that they are not tools. They are living beings. Camus did not reject thinking. He rejected any thought that demanded people deny their own sensations in the name of a future reward. Joy is the refusal to give up the body for an idea, and that refusal is rebellion. Camus never confused joy with hope. Hope looks toward a future that might save us. Joy lives inside the present without pretending anything will. This distinction is crucial. When joy becomes hope, it turns into a promise that must be fulfilled. But Camus believed joy does not wait. Hope says things will get better. Joy says something is alive now. Camus believed waiting was one of the most destructive habits of modern life. People wait for the right conditions before they allow themselves to feel fully alive. But the right conditions never arrive. There is always uncertainty, risk, and loss. Joy refuses this postponement. To feel joy in the middle of uncertainty is not naive, it is courageous. It means you are not letting fear dictate the boundaries of your experience. You are not shrinking your life to avoid being hurt. Joy is not optimism. It does not claim the future will be kind. It simply refuses to let the future steal the present. This is why joy fits the absurd. When nothing is guaranteed, every moment becomes fragile. And fragile things deserve attention. Joy is attention to life. Camus believed despair happens when people mistake suffering for the truth of existence. But suffering is only one part of the truth. So is love, so is beauty, so is laughter. To reduce life to pain alone is to lie about it. Joy tells the whole truth. Camus never suggested that joy erases pain. He knew suffering intimately. Illness, poverty, war, and political betrayal shaped his life, but he refused to let suffering define everything. Suffering is real, but it is not the whole of reality. Joy does not deny suffering. It stands beside it. A person can grieve and still feel a moment of beauty. They can be oppressed and still feel a surge of life. These moments are not betrayals of pain. They are signs that pain has not conquered everything. Camus believed despair happens when suffering is mistaken for the total truth of existence. But existence is larger than suffering. It includes love, memory, pleasure, and connection. When you forget this, bitterness takes over. Joy keeps the world large. A bitter person simplifies life into darkness. A joyful person preserves its complexity. They know pain exists, but they also know it is not all that exists. This complexity makes compassion possible. When everything is reduced to suffering, people become hard. When life remains layered, people remain open. This is why joy is not frivolous. It is protective. It protects the heart from becoming numb. And a numb heart is easily controlled. Camus believed that oppressive systems depend on emotional flattening. When people no longer feel deeply, they no longer resist. Joy keeps feeling alive. Joy is the refusal to become emotionally empty, and that is rebellion. Many people think that once you accept the absurd, the only honest conclusion is nihilism. If nothing has ultimate meaning, they assume nothing matters. Camus believed this was a misunderstanding. Nihilism says nothing is worth anything. The absurd says nothing is guaranteed. These are not the same. Joy is what proves the difference. To feel joy is to experience value without asking for permission from the universe. You do not need a cosmic justification to feel that something matters. You do not need a final explanation to care about a moment, a person, or a sensation. Joy happens before philosophy can judge it. This is why joy is so threatening to nihilism. Nihilism tries to flatten everything into emptiness. Joy keeps breaking through that flattening. It says, something is here, something is alive, something is felt. Camus believed nihilism grows when people turn the absence of meaning into a reason to withdraw from life. They stop loving deeply. They stop risking attachment. They stop caring because they are afraid of being hurt in a world without guarantees. Joy refuses this retreat. To feel joy in an uncertain world is to accept vulnerability. You know that what you love can be lost. You know that what you enjoy will pass, and you feel it anyway. That willingness to feel is what keeps life from collapsing into indifference. Joy is courage. It is easier to become numb than to stay open. It is easier to say nothing matters than to admit that things matter even when they will not last. Camus wanted people to choose the harder path. Nihilism makes people passive. Joy makes them present. Presence is dangerous to despair. When you are fully present, the world cannot be reduced to an abstract idea about meaninglessness. It becomes something that is happening right now, with all its contradictions and textures. Camus did not want a philosophy that explained life away. He wanted a way of living that stayed in contact with it. Joy is how that contact is maintained. In a meaningless universe, joy becomes a way of saying, I am still here and that still matters to me. That is not illusion, that is honesty. And honesty, for Camus, is the deepest form of rebellion. Camus believed joy is not only psychological, it is ethical. A person who still feels alive is more capable of caring about others. A person who has become numb is easily persuaded that cruelty is normal. Joy keeps the heart open. When people are deprived of joy, they shrink. They become suspicious, fearful, and defensive. They stop seeing others as fellow human beings and start seeing them as threats or abstractions. This is how injustice spreads. It grows in emotional emptiness. Joy interrupts this process. To feel pleasure, beauty, or connection is to remember what is at stake. It reminds you that life is something that can be hurt, and when you know something can be hurt, you become more careful with it. Camus believed solidarity begins not with ideology, but with shared experience. When people laugh together, grieve together, or feel alive together, they form bonds that fear cannot easily break. Joy is one of the strongest forms of shared experience. That is why oppressive systems try to suppress it. They do not want people to feel deeply. They want them distracted, exhausted, or numb. A joyful population is unpredictable. People who love life do not surrender it easily. Joy is quiet resistance. It does not need slogans. It does not need banners. It simply keeps something human alive inside people. And that something resists cruelty by its very existence. Camus did not believe joy would overthrow injustice by itself, but he believed that without joy, no revolt could remain humane. Without joy, rebellion becomes hatred. With joy, rebellion remains rooted in love for what is still worth protecting. Joy does not deny the world's darkness. It insists that darkness does not own everything, and that insistence is ethical. Camus believed that joy is deeply social. It does not isolate people. It connects them. When people experience something beautiful together, laughter, music, conversation, shared labor, they recognize one another as living beings rather than functions or roles. This recognition is powerful. Oppressive systems depend on separating people. They turn individuals into categories: worker, enemy, citizen, outsider. Joy dissolves these categories for a moment. When people feel alive together, they become harder to divide. Camus believed that solidarity grows out of shared life, not shared beliefs. You do not need to agree with someone to laugh with them. You do not need the same ideology to feel their pain. Joy creates a ground where people meet as human beings before they meet as positions. This is why joy is politically dangerous. It produces bonds that do not run through authority. It creates loyalty to life itself rather than to abstract causes. Joy makes people care about each other in ways that cannot be commanded. Camus saw this in ordinary life, in friendships, in love, in simple pleasures shared under difficult conditions. These moments do not look like resistance, but they are. They preserve something that power tries to erode. When people are allowed to feel alive together, they remember that their lives matter, and when they remember that, they become less willing to be treated as expendable. Joy is not escape from the world. It is connection to it. In a world that often feels cold and mechanical, joy keeps warmth alive. It keeps the idea of human closeness from disappearing, and that closeness is what makes injustice unbearable. Camus believed that if people stopped feeling joy together, they would stop caring when others were hurt. Solidarity would collapse, cruelty would spread. Joy is what holds solidarity together. Camus believed joy becomes deeper, not weaker, when you face death honestly. Many people avoid thinking about mortality because it is frightening. They distract themselves with plans, routines, and fantasies of permanence. But Camus thought this avoidance secretly robs life of intensity. When you know that everything ends, every moment becomes sharper. Mortality does not cancel joy, it gives it weight. If you were going to live forever, nothing would be urgent. You could postpone love, laughter, and beauty indefinitely. But because life is finite, every experience carries a kind of fragile significance. It happens once, and then it is gone. That is why it matters. Camus believed people often live as if time were endless. They delay being fully present. They wait for the right moment. They tell themselves they will enjoy life later, but later is never guaranteed. The future is always uncertain. Death can interrupt any story. Joy refuses this postponement. To feel joy is to accept that this moment, imperfect as it is all you truly have. It is to stop treating life as a rehearsal. You are already on stage. This awareness is not morbid. It is liberating. When you stop pretending that life will become more real later, you allow yourself to live now. You stop bargaining with time. Camus believed this is one of the deepest forms of rebellion against despair. Death threatens to make everything seem pointless. Joy answers by making every moment vivid. To know that something will end does not make it meaningless. It makes it precious. A sunset matters because it fades. A friendship matters because it can be lost. A laugh matters because it will not last forever. Joy is the recognition of this fragility. It does not deny loss. It accepts it and still chooses to feel. Camus did not want people to live in fear of death. He wanted them to live in awareness of life. That awareness does not make you cautious. It makes you alive. In a world where everything ends, joy becomes a way of saying, even now, even here, something is happening that is worth being present for, and that presence is rebellion. Camus insisted that joy must exist without guarantees. If joy depends on promises of success, of heaven, of historical victory, it becomes fragile. When those promises fail, joy collapses. Camus wanted a joy that could survive uncertainty. This is why he rejected every philosophy that tried to make life safe. Life cannot be made safe. It can only be lived. Joy, for Camus, is not the reward for a meaningful life. It is what makes life feel meaningful, even when no meaning is given. You do not earn joy by solving the universe. You experience it by inhabiting your own existence. This is what makes joy so radical. It does not wait for permission. It does not wait for certainty. It does not wait for proof. Joy happens when a person says yes to life as it is, not as it should be. This yes is not blind. It knows about pain, injustice, and death. But it refuses to let those things cancel everything else. It refuses to let suffering define the whole of reality. Camus believed people often withhold joy because they feel it must be justified. They think it is wrong to feel alive when others suffer, but Camus saw it differently. To feel joy is not to forget suffering. It is to preserve the capacity to care about it. A person who feels nothing cannot be compassionate. A person who feels alive still can. Joy keeps the heart open. This is why Camus believed joy is not selfish. It is what makes ethical life possible. Without joy, revolt becomes empty. Without joy, compassion dries up. Joy does not fix the world. It keeps us from becoming indifferent to it. And in a world that offers no guarantees, that may be the most important thing of all. In the end, Camus believed that joy is one of the quietest and most powerful forms of rebellion. It does not shout, it does not demand, it simply refuses to surrender the inner life to despair. The absurd tells us that the world does not care. Joy answers, I still do. That answer is not a solution. It is a stance. It is a way of standing inside uncertainty without collapsing. It is the refusal to let silence become emptiness. Camus did not promise that joy would save the world. He knew the world was brutal, unjust, and often cruel, but he believed joy could save something essential inside people, their ability to feel, to love, and to care. Without joy, revolt becomes hatred. With joy, revolt becomes loyalty to life. This is why Camus never wanted a philosophy that only explained suffering. He wanted a way of living that resisted it. Joy is how resistance stays human. It keeps rebellion from turning into bitterness. To feel joy in an absurd world is not to deny reality, it is to live inside it fully. It is to say that even in a universe without answers, something is still happening that is worth experiencing. That something is life itself. And to choose life again and again, without illusions, without guarantees, is the deepest rebellion Camus knew.